I spent most of my professional life in transportation solutions, which is a nice way of saying we were selling cars. And our region was, of course, the main market is Guam and then American Samoa. I joined the company almost 37 years ago. And my first role was in marketing advertising, lay out the print ads the old ways. When ads were in the newspaper, you had to kind of draw them out and cut out the little pictures of the cars and paste them on a piece of paper and take them to the ad agency, and then they laid it out for the newspaper to film cars and driving and filming and so forth and show the features of the car and all that. It was a lot of fun. And then I graduated to operations, and I was kind of getting involved with all the departments, and eventually became general manager, and I spent the rest of my career as general manager, reporting to the president and CEO of the company. The main values I promoted within the organization was to be transparent, to be honest, and truthful. Now, in the car business, that's not necessarily the most forthcoming values that people usually find. But because we're a small market, you kind of live in a fishbowl, and if you hurt people, then it comes back to hurt you. Really made sure that new hires are told about that our reputation with customers was that we were truthful. We were not always correct. I mean, sometimes we made mistakes, but you live up to your reputation. You fix whatever you did wrong, or you find a solution that is mutually acceptable, that type of thing. And so we had a reputation, even with the consumer advocate, that we had the least complaints from customers, which was a good sign. And they had no pending cases. We always resolved the situation with our customers. And I always tried to push a consultative approach to management, so that you empower your employees. If something goes wrong, you consult with them, but they felt that they had support from management. So they would take their responsibility seriously, and they would try to engage customers, do the best they can. And sometimes, obviously, we are all human. You make mistakes. You try to explain to the customer, well, the individual tried, but okay, we'll fix it for you. We'll make it right. We had an individual who was not a likely success story in the beginning, and he became a service advisor. So he saw a lot of, he was quite good at what he did, and he saw a lot of customers, but we were getting complaints about the way he was treating people. He loved to wear luxury items, a Gucci belt, and Gucci shoes, and so forth. And I said, well, how do you feel when you go into a store like that, and how do they treat you? And so he was explaining the process. And so I said, why don't you do that when you when you handle your customers? And as a result, he became a top producer. He was just a remarkable guy. He would recognize a customer by the license plate. So when you drove up, he recognized your license plate. He would call you by your name. Oh, Mr. Turan, welcome to Nissan, and so forth. And so he was, he really had some good skills, and with the coaching and with our engagement, he really lifted his game to a completely new level. And, I've tried to do that even with managers. Sometimes we had very little infighting within the organization, because I tried to keep open lines of communications and make sure that people were transparent. You don't talk behind someone's back. You make sure that everybody knows where you stand. You may not agree, but we're professionals. We got to move on and find a solution and give and take some. I think the biggest challenge is probably new hires who call in sick on a Monday morning during their trial period. You think you've hired someone who's really good, and then you encounter someone who either maybe lacks motivation, or his values are not at the level where you expected them to be. And so then you've got to coach and accompany them and see how you can mold their behavior so that they fit the organization. And sometimes it just doesn't fit. And you come to a point where you say, well, we've tried and we've given you opportunities, but I don't think this is going to work. I think the biggest failure is really when someone steals. We had a very open and very trusting behavior in the company across the board. But then when you find that someone breaks those rules, then it's really, you feel a personal failure because you've worked with the individual sometimes for a long time. You take that personally. A question I have for you, because I've recently struggled with that, is how do you teach people to let go, right? When you're in an organization and people have their job and they're holding on to their turf, and you say, okay, give it to someone else, let them learn and let them grow. And maybe it's not exactly the way you like to do it, but they'll find a solution, they'll find an answer. And maybe you'll find that it is, wow, you hadn't thought about doing it that way, or, their way, or whatever. And sometimes that's a big challenge in organizations. I've always tried to empower people to do things, but sometimes you get people who are really afraid to do that and push back, right? And of course, the challenge sometimes is also that you suggest something to someone, and then they say, well, the boss said it, so I'm going to do it, right? And then they say, why did you do it? Well, that's what you said. And well, I only said it so that you could think about it and do your own thing. So it's interesting. I think in the early years of my career, I was much more impulsive and less patient. You learn to work with people, and we live in a very multicultural environment in Guam. So you deal with Asians, you deal with islanders, you deal with outer islanders who have they have completely different sets of values, and so then you have to learn how to incorporate them into your organization and allow them to thrive. But we had one individual, and we almost had to terminate him because of his, but we gave him another chance and he became a supervisor. So, it's just, sometimes people have difficulties in their lives, and you've got to, are you giving them the space to work that out, or are you just shutting the door because there's a temporary lapse in that individual? In the old days, I would have just slammed the door on that. But I've learned that sometimes it's worth giving the person a break, and then give them another chance. And then if they show that they can make it, then they really become strong and valuable employees. I joined ebbf because I found the organization on the web, and then I came to the London conference, which was maybe 8 years ago, and I was blown away. I'd never attended any business environment, any business meeting that was as stimulating, as motivating, and uplifting as the ebbf conference. And so I came back to Guam, and I thought I should do something. I didn't know what to do and how to start it. But then we did start meaningful conversations about 5 years ago, and sustained it for about 4 years. Co-hosted, I had 3 young professionals working with me, all female. I think ebbf has a lot to offer, in the sense that the values are important, but it's also the positive energy that comes out of ebbf is really a great stimulus for professional people. And so ebbf is definitely a source where I can find material, when I can find ideas that I can share or guide people to it. And it's been great. I think it's one of the best things I've done in my life. It's really professionally, it's has opened a lot of horizons to me and allowed me to meet a lot of very interesting and capable and accomplished individuals, and I'm really grateful for that. Building the future is of course, is a challenge because we live in transitional times. We're faced with unexpected challenges, but new tools have come to light, and we're talking on one of them. It doesn't matter what industry, what business, what technology you're in. It's all about people ultimately. It's how you communicate with people, how you empower them, how you stimulate them, how you motivate them, and so forth. So.